In tonight's Government Insider, crafting the continuing resolution. Congress has until the end of the month to pass a federal spending bill for 2016, but chances of actually getting it done, highly unlikely. Now lawmakers will turn to a kick-the-can measure to keep the government open. For more now, we turn to our guest tonight on Capitol Insider, Francis Rose, host of In Depth with Francis Rose on Federal News Radio, 1500 AM. Welcome, Francis.
Thank you.
Now, before we get to that continuing resolution, we've got to talk about the budget itself. It's the main job of Congress to pass that federal budget every year. And after the government shutdown in October 2013 and the plummeting approval ratings, you think they'd finally get it together. So why won't a full budget get done by October? What does it actually take to get the job done here?
Well, what it normally takes is about 6 to 8 months of hard work on the parts of the committees in Congress, both the House and Senate and the White House, to be fully engaged on getting the budget resolutions done and then getting the appropriations bills done. There are 12 of those. Right now, we have had none of them passed and sent to President Obama's desk, and that's why we find ourselves in the situation that we're in, with either those bills needing to be done by September 30th or some kind of measure that appears to be the most likely scenario, a continuing resolution to at least keep the government open for a short period of time until Congress and the White House can come to some kind of an agreement.
And you mentioned that lawmakers now going to go to that kick-the-can method to fund the gap until a full bill can be passed. Got to ask, how bad is this kind of a resolution for federal agencies? Talk about the impact and how long could a resolution like this actually last?
Well, continuing resolutions can last for as long as Congress decides they want them to last. So if they come back and they decide we can get a deal done that will take us to October 10th, and then we can pass the rest of the bills that we need to get the job done, that's what they'll do. The most likely scenario that I'm hearing from Capitol Hill right now is that a continuing resolution would start October 1st and take the agencies through about the middle of December. After that point in time, that would give Congress enough time to get those bills done in a way that President Obama would sign them. It would also give Congress a chance to figure out how they're going to get around all of the controversies over Planned Parenthood funding and all of the other things that could potentially be involved in holding up a budget deal as we're seeing right now. So the most likely scenario is that the impact on agencies is terrible, mainly because they're doing planning for things that will probably never happen, like the shutdown of the federal government. That's one thing agencies are spending a lot of time on right now, because as it stands today, there's no provision in place for how they're going to keep the doors open after midnight on September 30th.
And this becomes a planning debacle, basically, as these agencies try to figure out what they're going to have moving forward. So it's obviously not something they look forward to, but
right.
Someone who actually does look forward to this continuing resolution is the IRS Commissioner. Why does he prefer a CR as opposed to a full bill?
Well, the main reason is because he'll get more money for his agency if the federal government, if Congress gives the federal government, the executive branch agencies, the same amount of money as they had last year. That's what a continuing resolution means. It means you continue at the same level of funding that you've gotten the previous year. So the Internal Revenue Service is due, if the House budget were to pass, to take an $800 million cut in their funding. They'll take a $400 million cut under the Senate budget that as it stands today. So if you're Commissioner Koskinen, it makes sense that you'd rather have last year's funding level in place so that you don't have to take either one of those cuts. Now, what will happen is that if that continuing resolution lasts, as I said, until December, if that's how it turns out to actually play out, then the budget that's passed at that time could result in his agency and other agencies that are in line for cuts to actually take those cuts. But a continuing resolution would just give agencies the same amount of money that they have now. They can make that work until they believe 2 or 3 months into the new fiscal year that starts October 1st. Beyond that, it starts to get really difficult for agencies to plan, even if they're getting an increase.
And we're still a few weeks away from this situation really coming to a head, but some on Capitol Hill are already talking about the probability of a government shutdown. You know, if you had to make a bet on it, what are they saying and what do you think?
Well, a lot of people believe that there is a better than 50-50 chance that there's a shutdown. I wrote a commentary on federalnewsradio.com saying that I think that it's about a 25% chance right now. There are two main reasons for that. One of them is political. The folks that were the advocates of a shutdown last time in 2013 wound up being political losers, not only among the citizenry of the United States, but on Capitol Hill. The other issue is leverage. The people in 2013 who were talking about, yeah, it's fine if we shut the government down, were the people at that time who were perceived to have the most amount of leverage, the people who were in the position of negotiating in Congress, the negotiators in Congress with the White House. This time around, it's different. The people with the leverage this time around, the leadership, are primarily saying there's not going to be one. We're going to do everything we can to avoid it. That's the leader of the Senate, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Speaker of the House John Boehner, both have said over and over again, no shutdowns anymore. Definitely not this time around. And that's why I think the likelihood of a shutdown, while it's still possible, is very limited.
And Francis, let's talk about the million-dollar question here. Say we go to worst case scenario, the government does shut down at the end of September. Who takes the political blame for it?
Well, as you said at the beginning of our conversation, Congress's main job is to pass a budget every year. If Congress doesn't pass a budget, it seems likely that they'll be the ones that take the blame. Republicans lead the House, Republicans lead the Senate. Republicans have taken the blame for all of the previous shutdowns that we've seen in modern times. They took the blame for the one in 2013, and they took the blame for the one in the mid-90s, so it seems logical that they would take the hit for this one, too.
All right, Francis Rose, host of In Depth with Francis Rose on Federal News Radio 1500 AM. Thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you for having me on.